So I want to talk about a couple of things that I've picked up from watching a lot of Sean Lane videos recently, and things that I think I've been doing wrong, and I think a lot of people have been doing wrong. So the first thing I want to talk about today is trying to build this really relaxed technique and why you might want to do so. The one thing I've really noticed with a lot of YouTube guitar players and generally just people who are trying to teach this stuff is that they all talk about trying to get the notes clean, trying to get everything to sound really good at any one time. And they're not really that worried about how relaxed their technique is and how consistent it is, as long as they can do it once. And you know, there's maybe several hundred takes that it takes to do something on YouTube. That's good enough for them. And the problem with that is obviously if you want to perform, or if you don't want to perform, if you want to develop a really good improvised technique so that when you're improvising, you're not making loads of mistakes. You can't be relying on stuff that has loads of tension in it. So here's a couple of ideas for you to work on that might really help improve the efficiency of your playing, but also just help to relax everything. First thing we're going to do is have a look at a 3-note per string major scale, and I'm in E flat here, so this is going to be one fret up from where it is, but I'm just going to literally just play that kind of thing. Very, very simple. What I want to do when I'm practicing this, if I'm just going to play that through, is I'm going to try and keep all of my fingers on the strings. And this sounds really counterintuitive, so I'm just literally hovering my hand and just touching the strings here. And this is going to be my neutral position. So the important thing here is that I've not got any fingers missing here or anything like this. There's no motions that are kind of like taking me close, and none of that stuff at the moment. All I'm doing is I'm literally trying to keep my fingers on the strings at all times, all three of them, but with no tension in my hands. I'm not trying to do this, not trying to claw up or push the hand forward or anything like that. It's literally just whatever my hand looks like normally applied to the guitar. And what's nice about this is that it immediately gets rid of the need to do these big emotions with any of these fingers. And that can really hamstring your playing, particularly because any motion that takes you super far from a relaxed position is going to introduce loads of tension. It doesn't matter which way I go. If I go this way and squeeze loads, you're going to have loads of tension in the forearm. If I go backwards loads, the same thing happens. So you want to keep this as relaxed as possible. But again, the whole idea here is I'm not trying to keep my fingers close to the strings while I'm playing. I'm trying to keep my relaxed position with all of the fingers touching. And that really helps just get that very efficient look to what you're doing, and also just helps with a lot of speed. So give that a go. Again, the whole point here is we're trying to keep all the fingers applied to strings. Now if it sounds like this for you, and you can't actually hear any of the notes, that's fine, because when you speed it up, you'll be slightly less accurate. And then it will actually just do what you want it to. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to talk about is using backwards pressure from this point. So again, your fingers only move nice and relaxed when there's no tension in the hand. If I use any one of these fingers and I put tension in it, I can't move any of my fingers as fast. It doesn't matter which finger I pick, everything locks up. It's the same with the thumb as well, to a lesser extent, but it's still there. So what I really want is no pressure from the fingers. I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be, gripping as such. What I want is just to literally pull back on the neck like this from the shoulder almost. It's like you're pulling back here using the chest muscle. Imagine you're doing a row almost like that, pulling that back. So with no tension in the hand, I can take the same position and I just pull back on the fingers with no tension in my fingers. And this now will play all those notes very, very easily, no matter what your action or your string gauge is here, but it will play all of those notes just by pulling back on the guitar. So with a lot of this stuff, and what I'm doing is I'm trying just to use this motion here to pull back on something. This is a really good trick for any kind of hammer-on pull-off idea. So I've talked about this before, but if I've got my finger just hovering over, let's say I'm just going to do this on fret 10 and fret 12 on the E string. I've got my finger just hovering over the 12th fret, so I'm touching the string here, so you can't hear the note. I'm actually touching the string. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to pull in with this muscle here, and then take it off. So I get this kind of feeling with it. And all I need to do is just make that motion big enough to clear the string. So I'm trying to take my finger off the string very slightly. I'm not actually using any finger motion here. You can get some really fast pull-offs here. And this is one of these things I'm pretty sure that Shawn Lane was doing. But again, it's really hard to say that without him actually being in the room. So if I'm doing a legato lick, like something a lot more complicated, and I will go through this stuff in more detail on my channel, so I'll do a deeper dive into a lot of legato stuff, but the same thing applies. I'm trying to keep those fingers touching the strings and just pull in and out. If I do it really slowly. You kind of get the idea, hopefully. So if I'm doing something like this, which is notoriously a pretty difficult thing, it's difficult if I try to use my fingers and take them on and off. Too slow, it's not going to happen. That's what ends up happening, and everyone hits a speed limit on that very quickly. Whereas, if I completely ignore using my fingers and just pull back on the guitar from this position of which I'm just touching on the strings, it's so much easier to play stuff like that, and and it doesn't feel difficult to get the speed. Like that doesn't feel like I'm moving fast there, because all I'm doing is just using this kind of like micro movements, pulling back and forth from there where I need to. It makes life a lot easier. So again, the key thing here is that even though I'm pulling back on the guitar, the fingers are still relaxed. I've not got any tension in my little finger. I'm not doing this, I'm not tensing it up, I'm not straightening it. I'm just pulling it into the guitar from literally about, a millimetre above the string. So it really helps with that kind of thing, but also really helps with any kind of three-note per string thing. So even if you're picking the same thing, if I try and use fingers, that's normally where people get to, more or less. Because you can see all this finger motion, it's all wasted energy. Whereas if I keep my fingers on the string, all I'm doing here is pulling in with the elbow. And I can get this pretty quick now. It's pretty consistent. If I wanted to do any of those three-note per string Paul Gilbert things, again, the same thing applies. You can just pull in with each finger. Something like that. And it's actually relatively easy to get that going because I'm not thinking about, I've got to put this finger down, this finger down, this finger. It's all a pulling motion of some kind to get that to work. So this kind of action and some slight wrist motion there will save you a lot of time. Try this out on a bunch of stuff. Again, there's no real rule as to what you use this on. You can do it on a pentatonic if you want to do. I can try and just pull in. Pulling. again, that to me feels like I'm trying to pull in from here as opposed to actually move these two fingers, which is very, very different. So it takes a little bit getting used to, but again, slow it down, pull in, keep the fingers relaxed. And just pull backwards like this. Give that a go.